Hello.
Welcome, everyone.
It's time for the
Hello.
Larter show.
We're back once again
It's
with a
true.
very special guest.
Hello.
We've got Azzy with us today.
We do.
Yeah,
Of Audrey Cord renown. That's where
yeah.
I'm famous.
Yeah, it's true.
And
Good
yeah, we're gonna
friend
be
of mine.
talking
Friend of the show,
about.
I hope.
Oh yeah, of
Oh,
course.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this collab has been in the making for a while now.
A
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, because we talked about having you on for some shows for a while. I don't remember what the first one was because I think it was other movies besides this. But yeah, I'm glad we were finally able to make it happen. Particularly about some movies that I know you particularly enjoy.
I've had like involuntary Terrifier autism for like the better part of this year, I think. It's just like proof that you cannot like pick your special interests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like out of your control.
But there is
Hmm.
something just like undeniably just like really interesting about these movies.
They're kind of magnetic. Like they're hard to stop
Yeah.
thinking about. I think even
Yeah.
when I just saw the first one and I hated it, like I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like there's
Yeah.
something to it.
Absolutely. Carter, real quick, are our videos in frame? Just peeking at the stream.
Oh yeah, I need to
Can't
I
see
need
them
to
at the
actually do
moment.
that.
Okay, thank you.
I
Okay.
didn't even notice.
But yeah, while you're doing that, for those who are unfamiliar with the Terrifier series, um, where to begin?
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I can give a
uh,
little history if you want.
yeah, I'd
So
love to get some history from you if you don't
yeah.
mind.
So Terrifier is an ongoing horror series franchise, a saga, really, at this point, I think you could say. It's written and directed by Damien Leone, uh, who's this just low budget filmmaker. He's done a couple of things. Most of them involve Art the Clown.
Hmm.
Where Art comes from is a short film called The Ninth Circle. That has like it's very low budget, obviously, but it's got like a bunch of pretty crazy stuff that happens in it. A bunch of pretty edgy stuff that happens
I
in it.
I
Yeah,
can imagine.
it
Yeah.
does. It's not a surprise. There's demons. There's uh, violence. There's bad stuff happening with pregnant women. It's just
Mm.
all the stuff.
So
And so you
can
would
I
think,
ask a question
what's
real
up?
quick? So is this All Hallows Eve or is this related to All Hallows Eve? Because that was
I'll get to
something.
it. It is a
Okay.
segment in All Hallows Eve, which is a
Okay.
sort of
Okay.
retroactive anthology movie that uses his old short movies as the
Okay.
segments.
Okay. I see.
Essentially. So you would think that like all of that stuff would be like people's main takeaway from it when he like screened it at film places and festivals and stuff. But the only thing that people talked about is this one scene near the beginning where oh, thank you for erasing the nose.
Yeah, it's redundant.
Where the woman, like the main character of the movie, has this weird, uncomfortable altercation with this silent clown,
Mm.
who is just like who starts as like just very weird and very annoying, and then just gets like more and more menacing. Basically, and that was the only thing that anyone talked about when he was getting feedback from the short movie. It's like, I don't care about anything else. You got to do something with this clown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
I
is kind of the start of Damien Leone being like weirdly, especially for being like kind of an edgy boy, kind of a provocateur. He's weirdly like really receptive to criticism. Like I think even y'all just having seen like just the Terrifier movies, like each one is kind of responding to criticism of the previous movie
yeah.
in a way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so he used him again for a short film that was called Terrifier. It's just like a little cat and mouse game with like a really notably gruesome ending. And that was just a short film. I think he just put it on YouTube or something like that. I don't know if it's still there. Um, but there was somebody with resources took notice of the short movie and was like, let's get this like onto like a DVD because I really really like it and just like make it available for home viewing. But in order to like make it worth like the price of the DVD, let's do like an anthology film, and you can put it together with the Ninth Circle and do like a little like in between segment as well. Uh, and that ended up being All Hallows Eve. There's also a middle segment that has nothing to do with Art the Clown that's kind of bad. Though the movie as a whole like isn't like super hot, but I had fun with it. I thought it was fine. But like nothing you're really missing if you skip out on it. Not the least of which because the guy who was playing Art at this point, not an actor. Like he's literally just like one of Damien Leone's friends. He was like, "Hey, can you be this
Nice.
clown for this one scene in this short movie that I'm making? You don't even have to say anything." Um, and I think the breaking point was when he was working on the Terrifier like feature movie. He was like, "Could you lose weight for this role? So he could be like sort of scrawny and scraggly and scary." And the guy was like, "I'm not even an actor, man. Get somebody else, please. I'm not committing that much for this." Which worked out great because he got David Howard Thornton instead, who killed the audition and is just insanely talented and
Yeah,
like
Oh yeah.
definitely a highlight of all of these movies. I think he really sells art. And yeah, definitely, in my opinion, the most like remarkable thing about the first movie,
yeah,
and in many ways the later movies too. But
yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, his
Uh,
performance is very much a highlight. Uh,
yeah,
we were even talking
absolutely.
before this, like I mentioned one scene in it, and you were like, "Oh yeah, that like performance in that scene is amazing." And yeah, it's like
Yeah,
there's like, so many like standout scenes with him. He's just so like, and he doesn't say anything, which is like all the more impressive. It's
yes.
all like miming.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the way that I've described Art the Clown before is that, he's a slasher villain who does like big expressions and like miming and stuff in the same place where like if you had another like funny slasher villain like Chucky or Freddy Krueger or whatever, you would have like a one-liner there. But he does like these big physical expressions instead. Although the description of Art the Clown that I really like is one from David Howard Thornton. He described him as like kind of an anti-clown, which what he means is that most clowns are willing to hurt themselves to make other people laugh, but Art hurts other people to make himself laugh, which I think
yeah,
is a
Mhm.
cool little perspective on it.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
from All Hallows Eve, there have just been three increasingly ambitious movies and also increasingly financially successful movies, and it's just snowballing, and like we're in the middle of the snowballing because I think as of right now the movie has made like $80,000 or something. It's like
Oh my
crazy.
gosh.
It's like an unrated horror movie that's like totally indie. It's really really cool. Uh, yeah, that's just where
Yeah, I
the
think that's
series kind of stands
mhm.
historically at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good and comprehensive background. Yeah, so I'll say that Carter and I watched we watched just the three movies. I looked
Mhm.
up the Wikipedia of All Hallows Eve so I could have
Yeah,
some kind of context. I feel like I didn't get that much from it.
it's not very important.
Yeah, but yeah, and I guess we'll just start sharing our thoughts. So do y'all want to just start with the first movie and go from there?
Not
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
that's the
not
one.
not not to spoil it.
Honestly, I probably liked it the most out of everyone here.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I don't know if because I think like I have gone back on this, and I think this will be pretty much the same for me for all the movies. I'm really torn on them in a lot of ways, and I
Yeah.
think this one has something that I think the other movies kind of lost along the way. Um, some it lost a lot of things actually, and some are better than others. One thing that it lost that I think is good is that this movie is extremely like misogynistic or like
It's
very centered
it's rough.
on
Yeah.
violence towards women. And I feel like this became more apparent, like the more time had passed since I'd seen it. Yeah, it's
Especially
particularly
compared to
occupied.
2 and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two, and we can get to this when we talk about it, but two definitely feels like a response to that
Yes.
kind of misogyny, like you mentioned, and I think, yeah, I don't think he did a super awesome job of
No,
like
yeah.
fixing it, but definitely better. Yeah, this one it's like I mean, there's two, maybe are there three women? Yeah, there's three women characters, two at the beginning and then one shows up later.
There's
Um,
also the crazy lady, the cat lady.
Oh
Uh,
gosh, yeah, I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
played
yeah.
by an Iranian trans actress, by the way. She's really cool. I
Really?
don't know how to pronounce her
Cool.
name, but yeah, yeah, she's awesome.
That's sick.
Dope. Yeah, but so where was I? Yeah, so the three, I guess not counting I mean the Catwoman's just kind of like crazy. That's kind of her
Yeah.
deal and like maybe kind of prophetic or something. Some mythical thing going on there. I don't know.
Mhm.
Didn't really pan out, but the main three women characters that we see, like their primary traits are that they're like kind of stupid and react strongly to things
Yeah.
and get killed. These
Uh,
are or maimed, I'll say.
Yeah.
as somebody who has seen this movie 3 times for no reason,
Mhm.
can I like give you my read a little bit because I can actually tell them apart. Essentially,
Yeah,
is my
yeah.
credentials here.
Yeah.
So like the first one is Tara. She's like the goth girl. Essentially, she's kind of like over her drunk, horny friend's stuff through the whole movie, and her
Mhm.
friend's name is Dawn. She's the blonde who dies really, really horribly in
Oh
like the
yeah.
most famous scene of this movie.
Somehow not
So,
even the worst in the series.
no, yeah,
Yeah,
they kept
probably
trying to
not.
top it. So
It's
Mhm.
probably it's the most like just like grimy, I'd
it's
say.
the most sexual for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah,
which
It's like
doesn't
the
help with the misogyny allegations.
Oh yeah, it's
absolutely.
like
Yeah.
it's
I
rough.
guess we'll just say it like she gets sawed in half
Yeah.
Yeah,
in a horrible way.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not great to see with your
Yeah.
eyes.
Yes. I
And then
honestly, yeah, sorry, go ahead
sorry,
though.
and then the last one, the one, so Tara is kind of set up to be like kind of a badass final girl throughout the first like half of the movie, but then she dies kind of unexpectedly and anticlimactically just by Art pulling out a gun because he's like no longer winning like his little fight, I guess. And that actually is like one of the only like I think really striking moments in that movie. Like cuz like when he kills her with the gun, like there's no joy on his face. Like he's not having fun anymore, which is like kind of freaky to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
But then her sister, Victoria or Vicky, kind of comes in halfway through the movie to be the replacement protagonist. It's just like Psycho. It's the sister of the main character who died, the spunky main character. It's exactly like Psycho, um, indistinguishable,
It's just as
including
almost as good.
transphobia.
Almost as good.
Yeah,
And Vicky's trait in the first movie is that she has no traits. You know, at least Tara and Dawn do have traits. She's kind
that's
of
true.
nothing though.
And
Although
other
we
Yeah,
than
don't really get to see much of her before she's in like altercations with Art. So yeah, that's
yeah,
fair.
her main trait is like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Huh?
the horror movie classic.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the only one who like other than Art obviously who like shows up after like the first movie, like from the
Yeah.
cast of the
Right?
first
Yeah,
movie.
she's the only connection really besides Art two
I
and three, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
and I would like to comment on her fate. I guess we'll just say like spoilers for all these movies, but I think it doesn't matter, honestly.
Yeah,
Like I think most of the movie you're getting from actually watching it, not like having the plot described to you.
for
So,
sure.
yeah. But I think yeah, it's worth mentioning that her kind of whole thing is that she gets like a facial like scarring and
Deformity. Yeah.
deformity from art
Art like
cutting her
eats
up.
like off some of her face, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I think also works into the misogyny aspect in
Absolutely.
particular. Just because it's like also like I've been thinking of watching the Elephant Man movie lately, which is a David Lynch movie that I've had on my
Hmm.
list for a while. And I just think it's interesting. I mean, this is like kind of another harmful trope, I guess, that it plays into is like people who look scary are like evil or scary
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever. And like yeah, I just think it's interesting because I mean, the first time you see her face, it's like played for like a jump scare. I think this is like the
Yeah.
first like scary thing because it's at the very beginning of the movie, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. Um, and yeah, it's kind of played for like a scare, like oh my gosh, that kind of thing, which I I remember when I saw it, I was like, that's a little like a little
Yeah.
tasteless, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, which, yeah, I think tastelessness is also something that's a bit of a through line in these movies.
Little bit.
But yeah, I think her scarring and then making her evil kind of thing, which I
Yes.
guess is kind of retconned in the third movie in a way, or like it gives her motivation more
There's
so.
not
Like,
a
I
lot of
didn't,
clear answers at the moment, but yeah, a little
yeah.
bit retconned.
But yeah, it seemed just like she got a facial injury and looked scary and then
Yeah.
became evil. And I'm just like, I don't know.
It's not great.
It's
Yeah,
weird.
it's strange. Yeah,
Uh,
strange
I
choice.
I think Damon Leone seems pretty cool. Like I've seen him in like interviews and stuff. He seems nice. He seems like he knows what he's doing. He seems like he's constantly trying to like improve as an artist. And he's also just very overtly progressive. I don't think that like any of the misogyny in these is like intentional. But I do think it's sort of the result of not just like his position as someone who's not a woman, but also just like taking a lot of things in like horror movies and the way that they go for granted, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of horror movies do go uh in the abstract the way that the Terrifier movies go. I almost
Yeah,
wonder if because the violence in these movies is so extreme, it kind of like brings a new reaction out of people, and
yeah, I agree.
you
Yeah.
think about it in a different way than just seeing like women dying in a slasher movie in a way that you're used to seeing, in a way that doesn't
Hmm.
like make you really consider what you're seeing, I guess.
Yeah, I think this maybe hits on a point which I wanted to talk about, which is just like, I think. Okay, so I mean, the whole thing about art, right, is that like he's kind of just an agent of chaos. Like he has kind of no motivation except to see people suffer, right? Like
A little
that's
bit.
his whole thing is like killing people, suffering. We get
Well,
kind of
there's
some,
also that one scene with the old woman where like she's like babying him.
Right.
I don't
yeah,
I and that like that theme, like I guess that he's like a child, like it's I don't know, it doesn't like get brought up in
yeah.
any
I
of
It
the
don't.
other
doesn't.
movies.
That's kind
That
of a
that
dead
one
end,
kind
yeah.
of that one kind of didn't go that many places, but I think yeah, I mean I think there are a lot of characters in media who are kind of like this archetype where you have like no motivation, just like crazy and does stuff. And a lot of characters like this that are also clowns. Like I've been watching Hunter x Hunter lately. There's a character Hisoka who's a clown who's just like evil and does evil stuff. The
Yeah.
Joker, obviously.
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah. And the clown. I feel like yeah, this is kind of a trope, but I think this one is interesting because I think in all of those examples, the clowns kind of serve to like bring the plot forward in some way. Like in the case of Hunter x Hunter, Hisoka, he likes battling. It's a shonen, it's about battles, so it makes sense. Joker, he creates, you know, violence that Batman needs to solve. He's there to drive the plot forward. And I mean, he's like the whole thing. It's
Yeah,
scary.
he's
It's
like
supposed to
kind of
scare you.
Lovecraftian.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting in this case because I think art here is to create gore pretty much. Like
Yeah.
I think that is his main objective in this movie series. And I think that is a hard pill for me to swallow.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
it,
definitely fair.
yeah, and I think that's ultimately like my main contention with these movies. I consider myself, I think before I watched this movie, like pretty, like immune to like horror movie gore scenes and stuff, but I think
Mhm.
I just hadn't seen that
Yeah.
many of them
I
up
was
until this
probably
point.
wincing for like a good third of like
Yeah,
the time.
I think
Like these
yeah, I
definitely
was
aren't like the most violent movies ever made or anything, but they might be
mhm.
like the most violent slasher movies ever made, or like
Yeah.
close.
Yeah,
Like
no, I mean, I think
mainstream movies, probably
Yeah,
like
yeah, I think for their like yeah, because it is definitely playing on the conventions of like a slasher, but like I guess you could say elevated or changed
it might be
by this
de-elevated
yeah,
in
or
the case of
decent
in the
depending
case of the first one, because the first one
yeah,
is like a minimalist slasher almost. It's like you cut
yeah,
everything out that's like not just like the pure meat, like the slasher meat
well,
stuff.
that's kind
hmm
of like what makes the first one like I obviously think 2 and 3 are like the best ones, but like
Mhm.
1 does kind of stand out as like this just like weird like grimy throwback piece.
Yeah,
yes,
And
yeah,
like even though it's like not nearly as good as 2 and 3, I think its existence is like interesting and I just like appreciate that it exists.
yeah.
yeah. I
It's oh, sorry.
No, yeah, I just wanted to say I think that quality is something that I kind of missed in the later movies is like that kind of edge and like freakiness and like
Yeah,
lack of context that you kind of end up getting in the next two movies.
Yeah,
And
like
I
in
have
the
a
in the
hard
second
time.
one, uh,
Mhm.
in the second one, like I was thinking, like I mean, the scenes get like more brutal, but like it's almost like as like a ratio between like plot and violence. It's
yeah.
almost like there's
Yeah.
less violence in the later movies.
It feels like
Eh,
it kind of.
yeah, I think they're like more concentrated
Yeah.
in the later
Mhm.
ones. But yeah, I also like obviously this feels like I feel bad picking on it for this because it is so indie and like, not made by a big studio or whatever. But yeah, the production not great in this one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean the
See, I
audio
can
is
kind
like
of.
echoey sometimes. Acting, I mean the
Yeah.
acting honestly doesn't improve that much in my
I mean,
opinion, but
I think there's a charm in that though. The
yeah,
movie
sure.
that like
Mhm.
I haven't seen a lot of movies like this, so this is like my only frame of reference really for like a movie kind of like in this like just like really like low budget horror is something like
Hmm.
Basket Case. Have you
True.
seen that?
Hmm.
There is the director of Baskin Case is Frank Henenlotter. There's a little Frank Henenlotter in Damien Leone for sure, I think.
Yeah, this is like it like did remind me of that movie. And obviously Basket Case is very different like thematically and like it's
Hmm.
not a slasher movie, but like it's like the similar just like you watch Basket Case and like the acting and like it's not like good in a traditional way, but it's so like interesting and entertaining.
Yeah. There's like a
Yeah,
texture to it for sure.
Yeah.
yeah. I definitely came away from it thinking like I understand why this went on to be successful. Like there's
Yeah.
like something in this that I think I can see how people would really get into this and, wanted to greenlight it or pick it up for sequels and stuff. Like because I think at its core art, the stuff that he does, it's like freaky and like has a lot of potential for more freakiness,
Yeah.
I guess.
I think there's
Uh,
a pretty good tonal control in like all of the movies, especially three, because three like flips back and forth between tones a lot of time. Or like
Oh
there's like
yeah.
yeah.
there's like tonal ambiguities in three
Hmm.
that you could like take in different directions. But
There's
something that
Christmas
I
music in
yeah,
3.
something that I appreciate that Damien Leone has talked about is that like even though art is like kind of like a likable like funny presence, when he's doing his silly stuff, what he really wants to maintain. He wants to maintain like a certain level of like actual genuine like sort of bite and evil and like despicability to art. I think especially because now he and everybody involved are so invested in the final girl of these movies now, Sienna Shaw. I think, like, her victories need to like feel good, and like Art being defeated needs to feel good to a certain
Yeah.
extent.
I
Uh,
guess that's a good segue into talking about the second movie.
mhm.
Unless y'all, I mean, we can refer back to the first movie
Yeah.
throughout, but
Yeah.
yeah, what did y'all think of the first movie compared, or the second movie compared to the first movie?
When I was, or
Sorry. Go ahead,
I was just saying,
Ozzy.
at first, when I was watching the first like 30 minutes of that movie, I was almost like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this one as much, cause like,
Hmm.
it is like higher budget, and I was kind of like, this does lose some of the charm. But
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
like as it goes on, and as we learn more about like the characters, and as like more like gruesome scenes happen, and it just as it like builds, I think it like really turns into something really like engaging, and like I did
It's
like,
really memorable.
oh
Like,
yeah,
I
and
think
like
regardless of what you think, it's like it's hard to forget.
Mm-hmm.
while the performances aren't, I wouldn't say they're like amazing or anything. I think like the characters and the way they're written, like I think Sierra is a really good character. And I
Hmm.
think like
Yeah. I
and
think Lauren Lavera is just like wonderful, especially in 3.
she's the best. She's the best like in the movies for sure.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
like I found like Jonathan to be an interesting character, and like
I love Jonathan, to
I
be
was kind of
honest.
I was kind of wondering where he would go, and I was kind of sad what happened to him in three.
Hmm.
But yeah, I really did like two a lot, and like I'm it's like I'm glad I watched it because I wasn't like expecting to like it that much.
Yeah. I don't think anybody coming into 2 after 1, like, even hearing, oh, it's so much better, I don't think they really expect like just how much of an improvement that it is.
Yeah.
Like, I certainly didn't. I first when did I first watch Terrifier 1? I forget. I watched it. I forget why. I think just like everybody else, I was like, "What's up with this clown?" I think
Mm-hmm.
that was probably just how it got popular on Netflix. And I think it's just like
Mm.
people saw the clown and they're like, "What's up with this clown? I gotta watch this clown." And then you watch the movie, and lady gets hacksawed in half, and you have to go tell all
Yeah.
your friends about the clown movie where the lady gets hacksawed in half.
And
It's just
then
like word of mouth,
and
you
then
know.
Yeah.
and then two tops it with its big murder scene.
The yeah.
Yeah. The it what is that? It was like her friend, right?
Her name
Yeah.
is Allie. The
Yeah.
name that people have kind of settled on for that scene, like, there's nothing as high concept as just like, oh, the hacksaw scene from the first one or
Mm.
the shower scene from the third one. People just call it like the bedroom scene or the bedroom
Mm.
kill in the second one,
Yeah.
because like so much happens in it that like there's no there's no like
Yeah.
high
It's like
concept thing to like
5
identify it
minutes.
by.
Yeah. That one is definitely standout in that whole movie. Uh I'll say I think I differ on your opinion, Carter, on this movie, because I I definitely I feel like I felt the way you felt during the first 30 minutes, but kind of like the whole way in, or for the
Mm,
whole movie, I guess. Like I think, and I think this was also a matter of expectations for me, because after I finished the first one, I'm like I could really see like, like the core of something that could be like truly horrific. Like I remember that hacksaw scene,
right.
and like I was thinking one of the things that kind of didn't totally sell it for me. Like the gore, obviously, and throughout these movies, the gore is like really realistic. I feel weird saying like the gore is good, like because
No,
it's
yeah.
horrific. But
It's a strength like that
The
they're
yeah,
aiming
effects are
for.
good. Like the
it's well made. It's well
yeah.
made
Yeah.
and well executed. But I think what didn't sell me on the first one was the kind of reaction you got from the other character, like seeing it. Like she was just kind of like generically screaming or just kind of being like, "Oh my God, ah, oh my God!" Like I'm not an actor,
Right.
so I don't think I could do better. But like, it kind of brought it down a little bit for me, or made it a little bit less scary. And I thought like, I wish we could just take that and like up it a lot, like
Right.
get another group of like total randos, maybe a little bit less like, stereotypical, and
Yeah.
like cardboard cutout, but developed enough so that when you see their deaths, it's like really like gut wrenching and horrific and like intense.
Yeah.
I don't even think I would like this movie honestly,
Yeah.
because this is like not my kind of thing. But I just thought like if we're going off the first one, like I think this is what would top it or kind of
Mhm.
like bring it up. And I guess the introduction of these two characters, Sienna
Sienna and
and
Jonathan.
Jonathan, it kind of threw me for a loop. And I wasn't really into it. I wouldn't say I dislike them as characters, and I kind of see like the narrative and kind of like writing strength they add to the movie, having like continuous people who are kind of like with this guy. But I guess for me, it just kind of brought it in a direction that I was like less interested
Right.
in seeing versus some more like insane, crazy, like horrific stuff. Like it kind of
Right.
brought it down, at least in the second one when I watched it, in a way that like I wouldn't say I hated all their scenes or I didn't like them or anything like that, but just it wasn't what I was looking for.
Right.
That being said, I think the bedroom scene and a lot of scenes in this movie were super effective and kind of brought back that like horrific aspect that like I enjoyed or uh
Yeah. That was
I'll say
interesting to you.
yeah, it was interesting in the first movie. Um but yeah, ultimately I guess I just wasn't really sold on the whole idea of like these people who like inexplicably live this encounter, because I think that's something that frustrated me too towards the end is like he just kind of like meekly attacks them towards the end, and like I guess after seeing every other encounter with Art be so
Right.
like definitive and like he kills the hell out of them, like there's no like ambiguity for him to like come around with like these like knives and just go like this to people like the whole
It's
time.
almost
It
like
felt
he's
like
going easier on them.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like I get why. It's because you want these characters to reoccur and like have some kind of like
Hmm.
uh antagonist, I guess, to Art. But yeah,
Right.
I guess I just wasn't
Yeah.
super sold on it.
So something that I thought about saying, and that I guess makes sense is that like not that you're super sold on the first one, but like I think if people like two, they'll they'll definitely like three. Like I think they're
Yeah.
similar enough that they if you're sold on one,
Hmm.
you'll be sold on the other. But I can also imagine like somebody who is specifically into like Terrifier one, like not vibing with two and three at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
Did you
but
like
yeah,
three
as
more than two? What do you say?
we'll get there.
Oh yeah,
We'll
we'll
get
get.
there.
Yeah, I'm getting a
all
little ahead
right.
of myself.
Azzy, did you want to say anything about
About
two?
two. Okay, so yeah, because I'm trying to remember. I forget when I first saw the first one, but I just like immediately hated it, like in a way that I rarely hate like movies or any kind of art. Just like pure gut like discomfort. Like this feels like it's attacking something in me, and I don't know what. Um, but,
I definitely understand that.
uh, but I also couldn't stop thinking about it, and then I saw the reports of like, oh, the sequel to Terrifier is like over 2 hours long, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be the worst movie ever made.
That's
This,
one thing that I was worried about going into this. I was like, how does this justify its length? I saw it was like an hour and 40 minutes. I was like, no way. Like, why are they doing this?
it's a slasher epic,
Yeah.
genuinely, I think. But then like it came out, and then like some of my friends who like I trust, and including some who did not like Terrifier one, were like, oh, this is like surprisingly good. Like this is kind of like an interesting, likable direction, and for this series, it's still very brutal, but it feels less sort of callous and empty and mean in a
And
way because there's
nihilistic, I
yeah,
would
yeah,
say one is very nihilistic, it
yeah,
feels like.
there's actually like a sort of appeals to humanity in this one, and so I was like, okay, and I actually rewatched Terrifier one. I still hated it, and I was like, okay, I'll try my best. And then I watched Terrifier 2, and I came out the other side of it, and I was like, okay, is that the best movie I've ever seen in my life?
Yeah.
Is that my favorite movie? And it's not, but like I've had a hard time like trying to like be sort of concise what I like about Terrifier 2 and why I it's not just like, oh, I like watching this movie. I respect what this movie is doing. Like there's something in Terrifier 2 and 3 that's like really like just hits me at my core, like in an emotional way. Uh and I guess it's just a bunch of things. I think one of the things is that like these movies in a sense, uh what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say like generic, but like these movies are not like don't diverge in their plots or whatever, or just like they don't diverge crazy far from a lot of other slasher movies. Like the bones
Hmm.
of it are still like very recognizable and very familiar. And I guess that could come across as like sort of lazy artistically. But for me, it doesn't. Like it feels like a sort of faith in these like genre rhythms and genre conventions. And then on top of it, you have these like interesting creative decisions and flourishes uh that sort of like bring out the full color uh that's like within those conventions. Like something that I've said to describe Terrifier 2 specifically before is that like it feels like it's a movie that feels like what I imagined horror movies were like when I was a kid and I
I
wasn't
saw
allowed to
that.
watch them. Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that in your review, and I definitely get that. Like,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
there is
sure.
something like there is like what I like heard about like what Jigsaw was as a kid.
Yeah,
It kind of
totally.
gives me that like vibe of just like
yeah. Or like, I remember people telling me about Chucky, and like, I never saw the movie, but just the concept alone, like,
Yeah,
paralyzed me, and I thought
yeah.
about it for weeks, and it freaked me out so bad. Like,
literally.
yeah, and I didn't even know what he looked like. Like, I literally just someone told
Yeah.
me about him on the playground. So,
Yeah, it's like I don't know. There's something just like very simple and like very primordial. I think at the heart of it, because it's not condescending to other slasher movies. It's not being, and again, I think it's full of like genuine appreciation for them, even as it makes like its own like decisions and like little adjustments. There's just something like really I think even in comparison to 3, there's something really like sort of heartfelt, like weirdly heartfelt in the production of Terrifier 2,
mhm.
where it just feels like,
I mean, I think it helps that it was a Kickstarter, right? I mean,
yeah,
people, yeah, this thing was like funded by people who just really liked the first movie, and like there
yeah,
was like
I
a
didn't even know
passion
that.
and
yeah,
a kind of like momentum behind this series.
for
So I
sure,
can definitely see that
for
in the
sure.
second one.
Yeah, it's just somewhere in between like Damien Leone's like desire to like improve as an artist, like make a better movie, make actual characters this time, up the gore, up the everything. I really like how this one looks too. Like it looks cheap, but it has this sort of like pastel, almost like color palette.
I noticed
That's
that,
like, yeah,
especially
it
in
looks
like
a lot better than the first
the
one.
clown cafe or whatever. That whole scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Banger scene, banger song. Lots of banger songs on the Terrifier 2 soundtrack. A lot of synthwave. That's really the problem with Terrifier 3. There's not enough synthwave in that
Hmm.
And
movie.
it's got
I think
Christmas songs about
yeah,
about Art the Clown.
it
Yeah.
does. I think there's also like an original metalcore song in there that like plays in the background of one scene,
Nice.
which is funny. Uh, yeah, no, it's really hard for me to like convincingly talk about like what I like about Terrifier 2, but like whereas I don't really hate the first one anymore, but I do still find it like kind of off-putting. Whereas like even with like all the extremity, I find Terrifier 2 to be really kind of inviting and sincere, and it's like, just like a space that I like existing in.
I think,
So,
at least like from what you're saying here, tell me if you agree with this or not. But to me, it sounds like, I mean, there's like actually an emotional core to
yeah,
latch on to in the second movie versus the first one. Again, is like really dark and like
yeah,
nihilistic
it's
and
it,
like,
it's like I mean I guess
yeah.
the emotional core of the first one is just like sort of wallowing in
Hmm.
like just like this meaningless chaotic pain or
Yeah.
whatever,
Hmm.
which is fine. I think I probably like some other pieces of art that sort of do that. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure I have.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I feel like what's his name? Or Requiem for a Dream, I feel like has
oh,
that
Darren
kind of vibe.
Aronofsky,
Like, yeah. Like I
yeah,
feel like there are movies that are dark and fucked, but like, yeah, just kind of do it
yeah.
in a different way.
Yeah,
But
It kind
Requiem
of it
for
just depends. Oh, what did you say? Sorry.
just Requiem for a Dream is just like I think it's just like the impact of that and just like how it like I mean like it's obviously there's nothing like that movie is just very much a downer, but like it's
Hmm.
just really
yeah.
effective and like
Hmm.
it's obviously